Hello, everybody. This is Ronry as always. I am here to cry yet again about Mother's Day. I didn't think I would need to, but since Mother's Day on the internet is looking like Christmas on the internet was looking, I might have to pull out my emergency don't go to the hospital plan. I haven't quite decided if I'm already going to do it or if I'm waiting on one more mean comment. Or even just rude. It doesn't have to be mean spirited to be rude. I've gotten at least one that they didn't mean any harm, but read the room, you know? But, my emergency don't go to the hospital plan for when things on the internet and in the media are particularly bothering me are turning off the comments, whether that means not logging into the app that day or if it means using the app without reading the comments or without reading my notifications. That's always a good one. But what I used to do as a kid a lot was read books. And books were a huge form of escape for me. And now I have a daunting task to read a book that won't make me escape but will make me dive deeper into the trauma in a healthy way that will heal me. So for Mother's Day weekend, I believe I will be reading number one New York Times bestseller. Times said stunning. The Atlantic said a triumph. Over 3 million copies sold. A Simon & Schuster book by Jennette McCurdy. I'm glad my mom died. And if you feel the same way, I'm sorry you had to go through that. And if that phrase makes you immediately feel a sense of relief, even though you have not yet lost your mother, I'm so sorry you're going through that. There are parts of my mom's story so dark that I don't tell them publicly because I don't want her to be judged by strangers. However, she is the life in my blood, and she will always be a part of me. Just like I was always a part of her until death do us part. Because when you give birth to a baby, that baby's cells stay inside you forever. And just like I was inside her till the day she died and was cremated, my son will always be with me, and my daughter will always be with me. And the children I have miscarried will always be with me. And I'm scared one day, especially if I don't read this book, that my kids will say the same thing about me. And I don't want that to happen. So I'm working on it now. And I'm still scared of that when today is day 9 of May, and on day 23 of May, I will be a year sober from alcohol for the first time in my life. And I could only do it without her. I could only make her proud after she died. However, there are some things that, while I do not wish harm upon her for having done such misdeeds in my life, which means I do forgive her, because to forgive someone simply means not to wish harm upon them. While I do forgive her for the misdeeds in my life, including things such as driving drunk with me and my sibling in the car when we were too small to know better, before she went to rehab, and including when I went to rehab for the first and so far only time in my life, she got drunk instead of hiring me a lawyer like she said she had already done as a promise to get me to go. And because I was in rehab, I could not find a lawyer in time to represent me in court for the divorce. I knew bad things would come to light about me, and me alone saying that the other party, my ex, is as guilty as I am, and now more guilty than I am. That would not go well, because someone who represents themselves in court has a fool for an attorney. And I want a smart lawyer. I don't want to fuck this up. They told me after I got the news that the lawyer had not actually been hired, after I was in rehab, they told me, don't go home. You're just going to drink. You need to stay here and finish the program, even if you lose custody, because it's more important for you to get better, both for your child and for yourself. So that's what I did. And while I was there, I called the rest of my family, and I finally told them what I had been hiding from them, that my mother was drinking. And at first they didn't believe me, because my mother and I had just had a fight over the phone, and they had heard her end of the story already. And initially when I said Mom is drinking again as an opener, they think I'm being dramatic and trying to throw her under the bus to make her look bad. And then I elaborate of what exactly is going on, including what I've just told you. And my Aunt Kathy starts piecing together, this is real. She calls and asks my mother, and without revealing that I told her, my Aunt Kathy gently coaxes out of my mother that my mother needs to go back to rehab. And so me and my mom were in rehab at the same time. Different rehabs, of course, in 2 different states. I was in Tennessee because I had especially unique needs, and my mother was more straightforward. You know, boomers have been to rehab. That's what rehab is based off of, is boomers. So, me with my history of being trafficked and my mother's neglect of me leading to trafficking and worsening trafficking, I forgave her long ago. But I used to wake up screaming because I would realize that I was in a barn in the woods on a mattress that was deflating next to someone I barely knew, I was in love with, who wasn't the most healthy for me, but I could not let go of. And I knew I was in that situation because my mother wouldn't let me move back in because my stepfather, Robin, did not like me for being trans, bisexual, and Muslim. And she chose that man, a stepfather, after I had already come out as bisexual. After my sibling had already come out as bisexual. You got 2 bi kids and you marry a neo-Nazi? I know that at the time she had abandoned us and didn't think she would have to deal with custody anymore, and so she set him up for a marriage where he didn't have to deal with raising children, and then did not deliver on that promise, whether implied or direct. And to work out a balance between these 2 facets of her life, her new husband and her existing queer child, who came out as transgender a few weeks after moving in with my mother and my stepfather, who didn't like me for being queer and Muslim. I moved in when I was 14. I came out when I was 14 as transgender. And despite the fact that she would pay lip service promising up and down that she did not choose him over me, if there is one person in my family who I made most aware of what was going on in that toxic, abusive relationship, everybody knew was toxic and abusive, but nobody realized was trafficking. Nobody realized was the Epstein files. It wasn't even called the Epstein files. It was called a demonic cult that worships demons from the Ars Goetia, the Book of Solomon. And I personally threw in the Book of Enoch, because I got really bored because they stopped giving me lore, and I was there for the lore. So I started making my own lore. And they would confirm or deny in their culty, manipulative way. But anyway, my mother was the most informed of what was going on. My mother had seen me have psychotic breaks where I talk about demons being the true God and how she needs to convert to demonology. How could she not know that I was in a cult? And then gather from the satanic panic of the 90s when I was born that your kid being brainwashed into a fucking demonic cult is a fucking red flag. So she let me live with my abuser as a form of punishment for getting back together with them. I immediately regretted the decision of getting back together with them as soon as they had exited their 72-hour hold. But she got wind of it from somebody else before I could explain to her that I had gotten back together with them and immediately regretted it. So she called me up. I was in front of my cult abuser, my owner, and in front of my owner, she started yelling at me for going back to them, and I was forced to answer her while in front of my abuser. I showed utmost loyalty to my abuser. just like she did to Robin when she should not have. I wonder where I learned that from. I won't say it's my mom's fault that I was in a cult. If I blame anybody, I blame myself. But god damn it, I am glad my mom died. So if you don't see me post for a little while, don't worry about me. I'm not dead. I am reading a book. I love you. I will see you in the next one. Bye.